This
that we were
conference will
discussing
now be
yesterday.
recorded.
So just for the benefit of people who haven't attended the session yesterday, let's go ahead, give a quick recap on what happened yesterday, and we can start off with the doubts and clarification session. So just give me a second. That's great. Fine. So yesterday we were just discussing about the basic, like we were doing just an introductory session on what Azure DevOps and what Azure as such is. And we were talking about what a cloud concept is and how a cloud concepts can really help us in progressing in our careers. And we were looking at the job market, and we were looking at what Azure DevOps really is. And we were also talking about what are the advantages of clouds. And then we briefly discussed about what are the different types of clouds available out there. And then we said, okay, fine. We discussed what are Azure regions and why do you need to really go for Azure because of the advantages and etc. And we were discussing what DevOps is again. We were just giving an introduction to what DevOps is to just understand what we're getting into. And we were also looking at how DevOps kind of changed the industry from a linear software development model to a cyclic development model. And then we were looking at how much an average DevOps engineer actually is getting and etc. Guys, are you all able to hear my voice? You get a few messages saying that I do not, I mean, my voice is not audible. Can anyone confirm, please?
Yeah, his voice is clear.
Thank you. Shiva, could you please disconnect your audio and join back again? Okay, great. Okay, fine. So we also discussed about what we are going to learn as such. We were talking about we discussed that we would be learning the basics of cloud, and also basically we'll be discussing the core concepts of Azure, and we were talking about automation tools like PowerShell automation tools like ARM templates and Terraforms. And we were also seeing, okay, fine, let's discuss DevOps using a tool called Azure DevOps. And we also said that we'd be learning a few open source tools like Jenkins, Octopus, and orchestration using Dockers and Kubernetes. So this is something that we were going ahead, and this is something that what happened yesterday. So just to give a recap. So guys, does anyone has any questions, anything to ask before we go ahead and start the session today?
Yeah, Kiran, I'm Uday. I'm Srikanth.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hi, Uday.
I have a doubt. Yeah. This is regarding about the comparison between AWS and Azure. So actually, AWS is having 33% of market share, and it is many companies are using. And also, AWS DevOps is like it is having open source connectivity.
Okay.
They are using open source software for DevOps. And coming to Azure DevOps, it is like licensed. So what I observed in the market is many clients are they are liking to shift to open source rather than spending money on the license tool. So in that case, how Azure will be going to occupy the market upon Amazon?
Okay. So to answer to that question exactly, yes, rightly pointed, 33% of the market share is now being occupied by AWS, but about 35 to 40% of the market share is actually being occupied by Microsoft and its own products. So as I explained yesterday, Azure DevOps licensing, yes, but at the same time, you do get a better SLA when you go with Azure and Azure DevOps products. The SLA, if I speak today, is somewhere around 4 hours for Microsoft to come ahead and turn around and give you a resolution if there's something that is going wrong. So that is one thing that needs to be considered. And a lot of projects today are experiencing a lot of migrations from on-premises to cloud. And if it's a Windows-based on-premises servers, they are moving to a Windows-based cloud, which is Azure again. And since Azure offers a lot of integration with other products of Microsoft, it's taking a lot of preference these days. Since I am right now in a couple of migration projects, I do see how the projects are actually going in. So it is yes that there is a very good competition between both the cloud providers, the AWS and Azure as well, but both are equally good in the market today. So you do not really have to worry, and Microsoft is not a product which is like going to disintegrate. Microsoft is a company that is going to stay in the market for a good amount of time, and so is Azure DevOps. So does that answer your question, Uday?
Yeah, actually, my question is like clients are interested to shift to open source rather than spending
Not
money on
really.
the
So not really. That's
That
what.
is the one.
As I said, it's not about spending entire money on Azure DevOps. There are a lot of free services even Azure DevOps kind of offers, and there are a lot of open source integration what Azure DevOps is right now bringing in. So it is not like clients are spending money on AWS or AWS associated technologies. In the projects that I basically work in, there's a lot of demand, that there's a lot of scope for Azure and Azure DevOps as such.
Yeah, okay.
Any further question, guys?
So one more thing. Is it possible to integrate open source tools with Azure DevOps also?
Yes, it is. It is. It is possible to integrate, and there is a lot of plugins that are available in Azure DevOps also, where you can bring in open sources like Jenkins, and Azure right now supports. And Azure is actually closely working with a company called HashiCorp, which is, let's say, the creator of Terraform. And Azure also has its own Docker container registry. It's called Azure Container Registry out there, and Azure also supports Kubernetes clusters. So there is a lot of integration that is happening today.
Okay. Compared to AWS and Microsoft Azure, cloud services, which are the most cost effective?
It depends upon the services that you use in the cloud again. So there is no straight answer. No, it's not called cheap or it's not called of costly. It just depends upon what are the services that you use on the cloud. Based on that, you are actually billed.
So recently, in one of the projects, I heard that Microsoft Azure is having somewhat better prices than AWS. That is the reason.
So the thing is that it all depends upon the resources that you use and etc.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So moving ahead today. So what are we really going to see? What are we really going to discuss? So we were looking upon, let's say, we were talking about starting about the basics of Azure, right? So, or the basics of any cloud as such. Now there is something called the offerings in a cloud. Now, what do I mean by offerings in a cloud? Now, let's say you are a customer, or let's say you're a client who wants to onboard his projects, or who wants to basically use the cloud right now. Then what are the options, or what are the services that you can use? Now, in general, a cloud provider has classified his services into three different categories, or his offers into three different categories. Firstly, called IaaS, or infrastructure as a service. Second, called PAAS, platform as a service. Third, called SaaS, software as a service. Now, what do I mean by IaaS? What do I mean by PaaS? And what do I mean by SaaS? Now, three main important terminologies out here. So, IaaS is just like you going to a market to, let's say, buy a laptop. You buy a laptop with no pre-installed operating system, with nothing inside it. It's just you're buying the hardware, not more. So when you go to a market out there, so most of us have experienced this, right? So in order to cut down the cost, you just go ahead and into just a market, and you just buy a laptop with, let's say, without no operating system at all. So what you're buying essentially is the hardware. When I mean by hardware, you're buying a data drive, you're buying a hard drive, you're buying a RAM, and you're buying everything that is physical that you can see. And on top of which, who would install the software? It is you. It is your responsibility to install the operating system. It is your responsibility to license the operating system. It is your responsibility to install all the softwares inside your computer and make it start working. Now, clients who are looking for such a kind of an option, meaning if they just want the physical hardware or just want the RAM, hard drive, and etc., all these services offered over the internet and nothing else. No softwares. I don't need anything such. Don't cloud. I'll just tell the cloud provider not to provide anything as such. I would just need a bare minimum hardware to go ahead and install my services. That's when infrastructure as a service comes into picture. Now, what happens in an infrastructure service? Very simple. Cloud provider gives you the hardware over the internet. We call this as a bare metal. So it's nothing but just the hardware. And you are responsible, or the client or the end user is responsible to make sure to install operating systems, to make sure to install softwares, to make sure to install everything that is required on top of the infrastructure. Now, one of the famous services in Azure that offers something called as an infrastructure as a service offering is called a virtual machine. Now, what is a virtual machine? What is that? We'll see later. Then what is a platform as a service? Now, a platform as a service is for users or clients who do not really know how to install this, who do not have a technical team who can install this and maintain all these softwares. I do not need such a kind of a burden. Now, this is me going to a shop, asking the shop owner that, you know what, I'm buying a laptop. Please give me all the pre-installed softwares in it. All I want to do is just switch my laptop on and start using it. This kind of a model on the cloud is called platform as a service offering. Now, what would you get in a platform as a service offering? You would get the underlying infrastructure, meaning you will get hardware, RAM, everything that you were getting in infrastructure as a service, on top of which the cloud provider would also go ahead and install softwares like operating system of your choice, Linux or Windows. So you can go ahead and ask the cloud provider, okay, fine, you know what, I need Windows to be installed on my machine. Go ahead and install it. Any other softwares like .NET and etc., yes, please go ahead and also install that and give the service to me. What do you do with the service? You take your code, put on top of that service and start using it. So it's as simple as it is. So just take the service and start consuming it or start using it. Now this is called platform as a service model. And in any cloud provider model, this today is taking a lot of market share, or this today is taking a lot of advantage, because more and more clients want to just do this. They just want to take the service and leave the maintenance, leave, let's say, the patching and etc. to the cloud provider. Then what is software as a service model? Now, software as a service model is nothing but a consumable software. Meaning, what do I mean by this? Neither the infrastructure nor the software that is sitting on top of the infrastructure is your responsibility. Everything is managed by the cloud provider. He will just give you the service and you can start consuming it. One of the popular examples of software as a service is web.outlook.com. Now, web.outlook.com is one of the service that you can just consume over the internet. You don't need to install anything on your laptop. It's a software that is being managed by Microsoft in the backend, and they just give you over the internet. Now, this is called a software as a service model. Any questions, guys? Does anyone has any questions with this? Okay, then what is the responsibility that you do out here? Now, this is the diagram that is comparing between different offerings that by a cloud provider. So if it's an on-prem, meaning if it's an on-premises, not a cloud, then everything is your responsibility. If it's an infrastructure as a service, you will be responsible for installing an operating system, maintaining the operating system, also making sure to install the applications and making sure to maintain the applications. When you come to a platform as a service, the amount of responsibility, the area which you see in gray, is being managed or is being controlled by the cloud provider. In our case, it is Microsoft. So all these things like networking, whatever you see out here, is maintained or is controlled or is provided by, let's say, the cloud provider, on top of which the applications is what you take care of. And when you move to a software as a service, everything is basically managed by the cloud provider. You do not get to have a say in that. Then what you can do with this is you can consume it directly. You can basically take that and use it directly as basically your applications. So software as a service is something that you do not have to install on your machine. You can just go ahead and start using it out. So if you move from, let's say, an on-premises to a software as a service model, the responsibility that is offered by a cloud provider increases and your responsibility kind of decreases. The maximum responsibility for a user lies in an on-premises model where you're not on a cloud, where you're basically on physical servers and etc., where you are responsible for doing everything possible. And when you move, let's say, from on-premises into infrastructure as a service, your responsibility kind of decreases, and the the cloud provider responsibility kind of increases in this particular model. So these are called the service offerings by a cloud. Now, if you go for infrastructure as a service, it is slightly less costlier than platform as a service compared to software as a service. This is how, or this will basically help you choose which pricing model that you want and which responsibility that you want to actually take up. Guys, any questions here before I move on? Is this clear, guys?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Fine. So then what is our next concept for today? So these are the number of offerings that are offered by a cloud and etc. Then what is the next thing that we need to do? Now we have yesterday discussed that there are about 54 different Azure regions out there. We said, okay, fine. Each and every region represents a data center or a set of data centers. And that is the reason why Azure as such today is very popular, because it offers a lot of a lot of data centers, a lot of locations, and it supports an n number of locations out there. Then there is a concept called an Azure region pair. What exactly is a region pair then? Now, in any given location, in any given, basically, for example, if I take a data center, if I take a region called East US, in East US, you don't get one data center. Rather, you get a combination of data centers that are connected closely with each other. What do I mean really by this? Is that in a region pair, you have multiple data centers that are physically connected with each other using cables, wires, and etc., and which are probably close to each other, which are physically close to each other. Then why do I want this kind of a model? Why am I really reading about, or why do I really care about region pair? Now, even before you start creation of Azure, even before, let's say, you go ahead and decide which region that you want your services to be in, you'll have to understand a concept called redundancy. What is redundancy then? Now, let's imagine that you have created an application and you are hosting that application from a data center like this. that you are hosting your application from one data center. Now, just in case, imagine that this data center is, let's say, sitting in East US, which is, let's say, close to a sea line. There is an ocean basically that is just beside your data center. Now, just in case, if something happens and your data center is not available, then your application is down. Now, do you think your customer will listen to all these things? Not really. As an end customer, I just want my application to be up and running all the time. Very simple. I don't care if there is some natural calamity in the data center that occurred. I don't really bother all that. Then I go to Azure and say, you know what, I am afraid of something like this could happen. Then do you have any solution for me? Azure would simply say, yes, I do, precisely for this kind of a thing, which is called redundancy, meaning which is called high availability as well. I will offer your service not in one data center, but in multiple data centers. Provisioned that I support region pairs in that particular region. Now, what do I mean by this? Though Azure has 54 regions in which it has data centers, not all the regions support something called as region pairs. Region pairs again is nothing but a cluster of data centers where everything is connected with each other. So just in case, if your primary data center is going down because of some mechanical or some natural calamity, you have your secondary or tertiary data center that is coming to help you out. How will it help you? Simple. Your application will now be hosted from a secondary or a tertiary data center. This will make sure that your application is what? Highly available. That you do not have to worry about if your data center goes down. Then how do you really look into which region supports a concept called region pairs? For that, you need to visit the Microsoft documentation out there.
This is Sridhar. Sorry to interrupt you. You said three servers in data centers if give problem, then how they handle this issue? All the three servers in data center is getting some issue. Then how they handle the issue?
So that's the reason I'm telling about an other data center here.
No.
Now I'm not talking. You're talking about all the three data centers going down?
Yes, yes. There are three data centers in that region. All the three data centers are giving the issue. In that case, how they are going to support the customer?
So firstly, there will not be an issue like that. In any given case, in the entire history of cloud computing, there wasn't an issue where even one single data center went down. Just in case something like that happens, they will host your application from a different region altogether.
Okay.
This is called geo redundancy.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. If it happens, they move to another region.
Region, correct.
Okay.
So this is called geo redundancy. But as such, in the entire history of any cloud, there wasn't even a single data center that went down anytime. Okay. You can have single servers in a data center going down, but not the entire data center as such. Does it answer your question, Sridhar?
Yeah, right.
Okay, great. Fine. So this is telling you, or this is simply telling you what a region pair is and which regions support a region pair. So even before you go ahead and decide to host your cloud, or even before you go ahead and decide to host your applications, you just have to click on this link that says regions that support the availability. And it'll tell you, okay, fine, you know what? All these are regions that actually support a region pair. All these are regions that can actually go ahead and support multiple data centers in the same. And it'll tell, okay, fine, I have my data centers in different continents like America, Europe, Africa, and Asia Pacific. And these are the places where you can go ahead and create, or basically you have multiple data centers out there. So I am offering something called as region pair support in these regions out there. So why am I talking about this again? It's because before you go ahead and plan your business somewhere, or before you go ahead and plan where you want to create your resources, you'll have to come here and see what are the regions that support region pairs and what is the SLA that is offered by Microsoft in there.
Sorry to interrupt you. If the performance of application varies, if we select the nearest region and if we select the distance region,
okay.
Like suppose we are in India and we want to host application from India, and if we select any region in India, then it would give a more performance than if we select any region in America.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So depending on the region we select, our application performance also varies.
Correct.
Okay.
So you'll have to always choose a region that is close to your business.
Okay.
So if your business is in India, then go for a region like Central India that supports a region pair. That's what is the concept of Microsoft. Is this fine, guys? Any questions here? Or shall we move ahead? Okay. Now, what do you want to really, or what would you, okay, I mean, if you decide to start using the cloud services, then what do you really need? You need something called as an Azure account. Then how would you open an Azure account? Now, as we discussed of different cloud model of different offerings, right? Azure in itself is a software as a service. If you want to start using the Azure cloud, you need to go ahead and visit this link called portal.azure.com. As in when you come here, it will say, okay, fine, you are in the portal. Can you give me your ID and can you give me the password of it? Now, since I do not have one, I'll go ahead and say, okay, fine, I will create an account. Now, guys, please listen carefully and please let me know if any doubts. This is how you have to create an Azure account. So just go ahead and say, okay, fine, create one. And I'll say, okay, fine, it is here in Azure classes @outlook.com. I'm just using an outlook.com. Doesn't mean that you have to use the same thing. You can use a Gmail or any personal account to go ahead and create your account with Azure. So I'm just giving a sample ID out here and I'm saying next. Okay. Okay. So your ID that you're creating has to be unique. Isn't available. Okay.
I mean, if we have a Microsoft account, can we use that?
Yes, you can use a Microsoft account already, but I want to go ahead and create a new account right now. So that's the reason I'm just trying out some.
So basically, okay, you guys can have multiple accounts in this?
Multiple accounts as in?
Okay, because Microsoft, okay, it will validate based on your mobile number, right?
Correct. You can have multiple accounts. I mean, let me create it. I'll tell you what exactly that I mean by that. Okay, let me do this. Let me refresh my screen once. Okay. Okay, let me go ahead create password. Just give me a second. I'll basically take my password out here.
Hey kid, myself Kapil have it out.
Yeah, sure.
So in this course, are we going to cover like hello?
Yeah, hello.
I'm audible.
Yeah, you are audible. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yep.
Okay. In this course, are we going to cover any migrations from Azure DevOps or sorry AWS or Google DevOps to Azure?
This is completely a course on Azure and Azure DevOps, which will not involve migrations from other cloud.
Okay. So this is the general requirement every follows, right? When they recruit Azure DevOps engineer, so they expect this, right? These people expect like people have experience on migrating Azure, any different DevOps from environment to Azure DevOps. So this is also one kind of requirement. So is there any chance are we going to cover this?
No, not really. So the requirements right now are for Azure DevOps skill set. So you do not basically have to be, go ahead and let's say have a migration expertise. There is a separate what do you say? There's a separate skill set altogether required for migration and etc.
Okay. And are we going to use any plugins for orchestrator or like automation kind of thing?
Sorry, plugins for what?
Are we going to discuss any plugins that generally every company use now for automation or for their day-to-day tasks?
Yes, so plugins as in we use Jenkins and we use basically third-party tools like Terraforms for your plugins and etc.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let me try this. Give me a second. Strange. Just a second. Okay, get on to the classes Azure. This is strange. There's some issue that's going around. Let me see. Just give me a second, guys. I'm just trying out an ID. Just give me a second. Guys, that someone has an Outlook account that I can use to go ahead and create this out? Guys, can someone give me an Outlook account that I can go ahead and use out?
Yes, I will give you.
Sure.
AKHILA.
Oh, okay.
PONNA.
Okay.
PLLI.
Sorry, PA?
PALLI.
Okay.
1289. Yeah.
This is at the rate.
Just
Email
give in the chat, Akila. Give in the chat.
Yeah.
Only to organizer, Kiran
Okay.
only.
Do you have an Azure account already with this?
Now just I opened. I'm just closing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I closed now.
Okay. Just give me a second. Let me give a message. Okay, can you give me the password privately, please?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, guys, so we couldn't basically go ahead and create a new account. Not sure what the issue was, but if you're using an account already in here, this is how the portal actually looks like. So this is just when you go ahead and create or just go ahead and create an account with Azure, you will be logged into something called portal.azure/home. And this is the first page what you'll be seeing. Now, what is this really then? Now, as in when you go ahead and create an account with Azure, Azure is going to give you something called as a Azure tenant. And why is it called as an Azure tenant? Because in Azure, you are not going ahead and paying for a service or buying a service. You're rather going ahead and doing what? You're renting a service. And when you rent something, right, you are called as a tenant. So the first thing that will get associated with me is called as a tenant. Now, if you want to go ahead and let's say start using Azure services, what would you really need is called as an Azure subscription. It's just like you are having an Amazon account and you need to subscribe to Prime Videos in order to go ahead and watch movies. It's just like that. In Azure, the first thing you would get with an Azure account, as in when you log into it, is called as an Azure tenant. And as in when you have an Azure tenant, you can now go ahead and start creating something called as an Azure subscription. Then, do you have to pay anything for an Azure subscription? Then it depends on what subscription you use. Now, for starting or for using their services to try out their services, Azure gives you something called as a free trial. This is called as an Azure free trial subscription that we are going to go ahead and create in a minute from now. And a free trial subscription is valid for the first 30 days. And Azure would give you some amount of credits within that particular free trial subscription. Now, what you can do with those credits, you can go ahead and start using those credits in order to go ahead and create resources and start using the cloud. Now, after you expire and after the free trial subscription expires, you can go ahead and start to switch your subscription to something called pay as you go or enterprise support. And all these are the available options, which are the paid versions of it. Then the question is, how do you go ahead and create a free trial subscription? Very importantly, you need to have a credit card or select debit cards. When I mean select debit cards, not all the banks or not all the banks basically would support going ahead and creating Azure using a debit card. So we would basically prefer to use a credit card, and don't worry, you will not be charged anything. While creation of the account, they will charge you 2 rupees, and those 2 rupees will again be refunded back to you. And let's say after 30 days, you decide not to take Azure forward. You don't want to use Azure at all. Then don't worry at all. You will not be charged even for that. Like after 30 days, if you don't basically use it, your subscription will automatically get cancelled. Then question is, how do I create a subscription? Now the first page tells, okay, fine, you know what? You can start with an Azure free trial. I can say, okay, fine, I will start with an Azure free trial. It says, okay, you have to sign up for Azure free trial. And now it will decide whether, now it will ask you a couple of details. So let's give in those details. So it says, okay, fine, this is something, and just give a random phone number out here. Just give me a second. Just give any sample organization name. Just say, I agree to all these things. And here is where you need to give your credit card details. So just going ahead and clicking on next. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, let's do this again. Next. And now it's going to go ahead and ask you for a card details right now. So this, please make sure that you basically have a credit card, or let's say select bank's debit card basically, so that you can go ahead and create this out. So let me go ahead and enter in my credit card details. So in the card number, just go ahead and give your card number. And just give basically the name of the card holder. So just an optional address out here. Just an optional pin code out here, and just go ahead and sign up. What Microsoft is going to do is, just to verify whether your card is valid or not, they'll go ahead and charge you an initial amount of 2 rupees. This is just to make sure to authenticate your card. So allow me a minute while the OTP comes in. Okay, I'll say sign up. And now it's confirming my order and it's going ahead and setting up my account. And now it says, okay, fine. You have something called as an Azure subscription with you. You can now start using your Azure subscription. And at the top right corner, it says, you know what? You are given 14,500 rupees in the form of credits that you can use per a month or until the credits are expired. Anything that comes earlier. Now, to answer someone's question, you can have multiple subscriptions within the same account. So the question is, can I go ahead and create another free trial in the same account? Not really. Free trial is just one per user. Once you exhaust your free trial account, you either need to go ahead and create a pay-as-you-go or an enterprise support or a professional direct, or if you have multiple credit cards, then you need to create another different account, a new account, and then go ahead and create a free trial inside it. So the first thing again, that the
Hello.
first thing that I hello.
Yeah, I have one doubt. After the completion of free trial, we can upgrade by license, or we have to pay perfectly. I mean, the completion of free trial of 30 days, and next we have to update our license if it is possible, or we have to take with only payment as.
No, the thing is that after completion of the first 30 days, if you're not using the service, the Azure subscription will get automatically cancelled. But if you want to use the account, or if you want to go for another free trial, let's say you want to go for another free trial, you need to create a new ID, you need to have a new credit card, and then you need to create a new subscription within it. Or if you want to continue using the same, you need to convert your account from a free trial to something called as a pay as you go. So what's going to happen in a pay as you go is that as in when you consume resources, you will be charged per a resource.
Okay. Then thank you.
No problem. Okay, great. So fine. So as I was telling, the first thing that you got with your ID was something called as an Azure tenant. And within that tenant, you went ahead and created a free trial subscription. You can now go ahead and start using the Azure services on the Azure portal. This is the only thing that you need to do to go ahead and create an account. That's it. So you need what all we did again, just to recap. So we used an ID, or we can create an ID that is unique. You can give the details, go into the account, and the first thing you'll be allocated is called a tenant. And under a tenant, you said, okay, fine, create a new subscription. And it asked for few details. We have given details like the name, the address, and the credit card details. Azure went ahead and to authenticate the credit card, it charged me 2 rupees. And after charging the 2 rupees, it confirmed my subscription and it gave me something called as a free trial account. And every account or every subscription would have something called as a subscription ID unique to it. And using this subscription ID is when you go ahead and start creating all the resources. So this is how you need to do, guys. So any questions so far, anything that you do not understand here?
After I have a doubt.
Yeah.
After free trial completion, there so we are using the resources. Then the amount will be automatically deducted from our credit card, which we have given at the registration.
No, not really. So the thing is that after free trial, if you're not using anything, the subscription will automatically get cancelled. Free trial is only valid for 30 days. Until and unless you, yeah.
Upon that we are using.
No, you cannot use it. That's what I'm trying to tell. After 30 days, your subscription will automatically be disabled. Until and unless you go ahead and turn your, or until and unless you go ahead and convert your subscription to, let's say, another model like pay as you go or enterprise support, until then you will not be charged.
Okay. So we need to make our account as a pay and.
If you want to convert it, yes.
Okay. So there are options to make that one.
Yes, after the 30 days, you can convert that account into something different. You can say there is something called as an upgrade option out here. So right now I'm not getting that option because I still have my subscription active. Sorry, here. So you basically have something called upgrade. You have to come here, click actively on upgrade in order to convert your free trial into a pay-as-you-go subscription. Now it says, you know what, you have free credits that expires in 29 days. Upgrade to keep up with your account. So you can use this account for 30 days, and after which you can go ahead and convert it.
Okay, got it.
Hi, Kiran Chandra here. So I'm seeing in the Microsoft portal. So there is some services for 12 months and some services for lifetime. So is that you're saying it's so valid for only 1 month? But here I'm seeing some services like virtual machines. It's for 12 months.
So if you want to use the services, you would need a subscription, right?
Correct.
So the subscription is valid for 30 days. That's what I'm trying to tell.
So it's not 12 months, right?
No, it's not 12 months. It's 1 month, and it depends upon what subscription that you're using. Let's say if you're using a pay-as-you-go subscription, okay? All these services or a few services are free initially for the first 12 months. That's what Microsoft is trying to tell you.
Okay.
But you will need a subscription. You will need an active subscription to go ahead and use it.
Okay. So if I convert that to pay-as-go, then I can use the virtual machine as per 12 months, right?
Yes, but
Without
when
any charge.
they say free, right? When they say free, it is not all the virtual machines. It's only a few series of the virtual machines that you can use for free, not everything.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Okay. Any more question, guys? Guys, any further questions?
Sridhar, how can we confirm that when we are paying bill, they charged correctly or not? And do they give any intimation before cutting money from our account? Do they directly deduct money from our account as per the services what we use?
After your free trial subscription, or how
No,
exactly
we
are
are
you?
in pay as you go mode.
Okay.
They charged like we haven't used those services, but they charged money for that.
So
What I mean
if
is,
that is the case,
before
then
deducting money from our account, do they give any intimation like these are the services used and these are the charges we made for that? Do they give any intimation or they directly deduct money from our account?
no. So what would happen is that your billing date will start from a month, meaning you will have a billing date. For example, I have created my subscription today, and my current billing date is from 13th of August to 12th of September. And at the end
Okay.
of 12th of September, I will receive an email basically asking me to pay my, asking me to pay for the subscription upfront if you're using a pay as you go.
Okay.
Until and unless you don't pay that, your subscription will be blocked. So it's just like a postpaid connection that
Yeah,
they will
that
give
is
you bill
fair.
and you'll have to pay it. So
No,
they will
no,
not
I'm not.
auto deduct it.
Okay.
They will not auto deduct it. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
So we need to give approval before they deduct money from our account. I
You
mean,
will have to pay it upfront. Yes.
okay. What happens if they charge wrongly? We haven't used those services and they charge money for that. Then
For
how
that, you
can
need
we?
something called as Microsoft support ticket. There is something
Okay.
called Microsoft support that is there to help you out. So you can create a support telling that, you know what, I haven't used this. Can you please tell me why have you charge it for me?
So,
and they will
so
give
we
you an
need to drop an
explanation
email to him.
accordingly. Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Any further question, guys?
Kiran, in some notification page, we saw some money, right? Like 14,000. So what was the credits? Yeah,
so these are the number of credits that are allocated to your free trial account for the first month so that you can go ahead and use Azure services. So when Microsoft means it's a free trial account, it's not like in 1 month you cannot go ahead and use unlimitedly. There is a limited use. For example, if you create a service, there is a price tag attached to it. So when you create a service in free trial, the service basically kind of runs, and that charge, right, is taken from this account. So you're creating, let's say, some service called X, and that service is consuming for about 100 rupees per minute. And if you use it for 10 minutes, you have something like 10,000 rupees, right? So that 1,000 rupees is minused from this credits that is allocated to your free trial account.
This credit amount will accept only for the services, right?
Correct.
Okay, so from this amount we can't do pay as our this Azure account. Only it will use for our services.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. It's clear.
Okay. Any further questions, guys? Anything that I can take before we close the session for the day? Guys, since we are in a virtual world, please go ahead and ask your questions because this is your time to go ahead and ask this out, and I'll be happy to take it. And before we come to the Monday's class, guys, please create an Azure subscription for yourself so that you can go ahead and use the same. So if there are no further questions, are we good to go ahead and close the session, guys? Okay, guys, then, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, if you have the pay-as-you-go subscription, like after taking off that one, so we have any trigger option like that, like the company have some certain of investments is there, right? Like if they have a certain amount of, like suppose like 10,000 rupees, they have limited of their investment in that. If you can use excess of amount, like it's gonna be high, like 1,500, 15,000. Have used that one. Is there any notification we get? It's not your. You have
Yes,
some of the.
you can set a budget limit in your subscription.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that
yeah,
one.
you can set a budget limit. So as
like
in when you basically
employees don't know how to, like they can use if they can use different, like lot of servers have if they use a lot of amount, like excess of their limit. So is there will get a notification like something like that?
Yes, you can set notifications for that, and Azure will kind of trigger an email. Let's say you have set a budget of 10,000. When you consume 80% of it, Azure will tell you that, you know what, you are coming close to the budget that you have set, and you can plan accordingly using that.
Yeah, Kiran also, I want to use the one of the virtual machine for free for 12 months. So how can I do that? So you said the first 1 month is free. So after that, I will convert to pay as you go. Then they will charge for that after first month completion.
Yes, they will charge for it after first month completion, but it depends upon what kind of a virtual machine series that you're going ahead again.
Yeah,
so
I want to use that free one, the free one.
Yes, you have to read the documentation, or you have to basically have a chat with the Microsoft support to understand what is free and what is not.
Yeah,
or
I'm
when
seeing
you
the
create
portal,
it,
but I'm not understanding exactly. So the
no, you
they are saying
portal
that.
will not tell you that. You have to see the documentation on what is free. That they will have a link just be beyond it, telling that these are the free services and you can basically use them. But there are very limited options when they say free. But when you go for, let's say, a pay as you go, it will charge basically. Like, when you create a virtual machine, there is a charge associated to it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Akila, you can use this subscription like I've created, so you can use it with your ID and password. You don't have to create one new.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, guys, then it was great having a chat with you all, great having a discussion with you all. Hope to see you all on Monday. And while coming on Monday, please go ahead, create a subscription for yourselves, and hope to see you all there.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.